What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Real Ones Canes podcast. I'm the Beast, Brian London. He is Brandon O'Doy. Follow Brandon at Brandon_O'Doy. Follow myself at Miami Radio Beast, and you can follow the podcast at Real Ones Canes. Hey, do us a favor. The thing that really helps is if you, wherever you're listening to this, you just hit the subscribe button and then, make a nice comment like, hey, Brandon's always right or Brian's always wrong. Make a comment. That's good. Also, if you're not watching this on YouTube, go watch it on YouTube and subscribe to the YouTube channel and hit the thumbs up and subscribe and all that stuff. That would really help as well. Brandon, let's get into it. We are definitely in the off season. We have hit the dog days of summer, not only because we are breaking record highs every day here in South Florida. It is hot out, but also because the news has kind of slowed down a little bit. Sure, we're still waiting for maybe one or two guys in the portal here. Recruiting's always going on, but we've come to the point where we now talk about game times and schedule. That's where we're at. It's, that's the time of year we are. And speaking of game times, we found out that Labor Day weekend clash up at the Swamp will be quite swampy, as Miami and Florida will kick off at 3:30 in the Swamp. Who does that? Why?
Yeah, that's a no-go for me. That's about the hottest you could ever want to play a football game in the middle of the afternoon in Gainesville. And for those of you who have never been to Gainesville, I've been to Gainesville in the summer. It's almost unbearable. And I consider myself to be pretty heat savvy as a 17-year South Florida vet, but it makes you want to cry. And they call it the Swamp for a reason. It gets
no doubt.
Very humid. You can be outside of your car and you're sweating within just a few moments. And as a larger guy, I think Beast, I speak for big guys everywhere, it's a bring your towel type of game. So
yeah, no doubt.
You're in the stands or in the press box. I mean, I've never been to the press box in Florida. Hopefully it's well air conditioned, but that's an older stadium, so I don't know.
Is. It might actually.
Like
I'm trying to think if Florida is an open press box.
Those are just so ridiculous. I remember covering the game at Georgia Tech, and we were basically sitting outside, and I was like,
"Yeah.
Is this 2016? Like,
no,
what's going on here?"
No doubt.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be hot, but listen. Here's the thing about it, right? Is Miami is practicing in equal temperatures and equal humidity down here.
Yeah, I'm not concerned about the fitness of the Canes. Matter of fact, they probably have it worse during that time of year. I don't know about the humidity, but it will definitely be as hot. And there aren't going to be too many indoor practice facility practices. There are going to be a lot of really difficult outdoor practices on Green Tree to get prepared for this. So I don't think the fitness of this team will be a problem. More so concerned about all the new pieces fitting together, as quickly as possible. But you got all off season to prepare for this game.
Yeah. So it'll be a 3:30 kickoff, nationally televised game, big one.
Which I like. I honestly don't think the game after the Hurricanes game, the Notre Dame, and I forget who's playing, but is it Notre Dame or FSU? Is that what's after?
You caught me off guard on that one.
I didn't mean to catch you off guard. You'll look it up quickly and find out.
Yeah.
But I didn't look at the game behind the game that the Canes are playing in and think, oh, there are tons of storylines. There's tons of intrigue. I just think the potential for Billy Napier to lose his job in one of the most difficult schedules and the potential return, this is the "you back" mantra that always gets tossed around. And then loser of this game is now on big defense for the remainder of the season. Like, there's just a lot of stuff you can play with for a national audience, prime time.
Yeah, it's Notre Dame. It's Notre Dame at Texas A&M is the game.
Yeah. So I knew Notre Dame was one of the teams, and I knew the other team had Burgundy. I wasn't sure which one, but yeah, Notre Dame, Texas A&M. I mean, what do you say past Mike Elko's first game is, the head coach of Texas A&M? Like,
I mean, it's that. I mean, that game. It's two big
Connor
games, and I'm
Wegman,
sure.
like I mean,
Yeah, I
who's
mean,
even lining up at quarterback for Notre Dame? Is it
but you know what?
the kid from Duke? Like I don't know.
Notre Dame can pretty much pass gas, and people are going to watch. So that's the deal with that. But yeah, Miami, Florida, 3:30, Swamp, a hot one, highly contested, important game for both teams. We've talked about it ad nauseum about how important that game is for really both teams, both coaches, and how the direction of their program. And so we'll see what happens there. Now, I just wanted a couple of news and notes as it relates to Miami's schedule. Yesterday, they sent out a press release, and we're recording this on Thursday. So Wednesday, they sent out a press release. They added Troy to the schedule on September 11th, 2027, which I will be 51 years old. Jeez. So we're going that. They also have a home game against South Carolina that year. Whatchamacallit. So UM last played, I remember this game. UM last played Troy in October of 2001. Miami beat them 38-7. I remember that game. But I just some interesting non-conference games on the schedule. But Brandon, in not next year, but 2025. Oh my goodness. Get your tickets now. We have a home game against USF. But then it's the Gators in the return favor and Notre Dame. Florida and Notre Dame same year at home.
Yeah, that'll be a nice home schedule. This home schedule is not the greatest. So if you've got like tickets, and I know that's probably not something that ticket sales folks are happy and excited about me saying, but it's just the truth. Outside of the Florida State game, are you excited for Manny Diaz's return? With Duke, Ball State, FAMU, the band. I mean,
listen,
what if they don't bring the band? Like,
I'm not in ticket sales, and I'm not in marketing for the University of Miami. But what I would have done, knowing that Notre Dame and Florida are coming in the next year, I would have said, hey, if you want tickets to that year, you got to sign up for this year. We'll do it at a bit of a discount. We'll get you in. I know I've had a bunch of people, I would say 12 to 15 people message me, email me, text me, hey man, they're limiting my parking for this year. Where can I get parking? Where can I get that? Because, obviously with what Stephen Ross has done with that stadium, with the F1 track and the tennis stadium and all the things going around there, it's taken away parking. And, people that used to have multiple parking passes so they could tailgate, what have you, can't get it anymore. And so it's become a bit of an issue that we'll see how that develops as the season starts. But certainly that 2025 campaign at home will be a good one. And then they've got, 2026, they got FAMU, Central Michigan, South Carolina, and at Notre Dame. We told you about 2027 with Troy and South Carolina. 2028 is home to USF and at Notre Dame. 2029, home to Auburn and home to Temple. 2030 at Auburn, 2031 at Notre Dame, 2032 Notre Dame is at home, 2034 Notre Dame at home, 2037 at Notre Dame. They got a whole series lined up against Notre Dame. That rivalry seems to be going to dominate the next decade of big games. So there you go with schedule and game time talk. One other thing I wanted to bring up, Brandon, as it relates to just projecting ahead. So, all these win totals, we've talked about it. We talked about it on last show. 10 wins, really the goal. Really, you said 10 wins was the floor. That's what you said. So I was doing some due diligence.
I mean, I stand by that.
Yeah, and I'm kind of with you. So I went to go do some reading this morning just to see, hey, where are we? What are the national pundits thinking of the Miami Hurricanes? Because I think, sometimes I tend to live in a bubble. We all tend to do. We're down here. We're around it. We see it personal. So we have our own take. So I went to the College Football News. It's a pretty non-biased college football news site. They predicted Miami's record as 9-3. Now, what they did is that they went and got the thoughts of Circa Sportsbook, which is the Circa Hotel in Vegas has, I think, one of the biggest sports books anywhere. It's like 3 stories, 1,000 seats. They've really invested a lot of money in their sportsbook operation, and they're really coming up big as it relates to putting out odds. Well, they set the win total for Miami at 9. So we saw other books set it at 9.5. This one's at 9. The College Football News says Miami is going to finish under that 9. Their bet, if they were to go all in, would be to pick Miami under 9.
Yeah, nah, that seems a little off. There are only 3 questionable games on this schedule to me. There's at Florida, at at Louisville, and at home against Florida State. Miami should be favored to win every other game on this schedule. Okay. The gimmies are FAMU and Ball State, and I would say Wake Forest. The games that they should show up, they'll have a little bit of conversation, are USF, Syracuse, and Duke. The other games are the games we're talking about. This is a 3-game schedule. I've been consistent with that. I'm going to stay consistent with that through the fall. You have all off season to prepare for Florida. They're playing. They don't have the greatest quarterback situation. Their receiver situation definitely needs some development. They lost a first-round receiver that's basically, highlighted their defense. They lost a running back into the portal to Georgia. He subsequently got in immediate trouble upon leaving Gainesville. They're offensively some question marks there. And so they've got a lot of holes to fill. I exchanged texts and tweets with you about talent being, more readily available than to the open eye. It's still Florida. It's still the SEC. They're not going to be a pushover by any stretch. But I just think that that's a lot to ask for a bunch of new pieces fitting together and with a tremendous amount of pressure. Now, having said that, Billy Napier is a very good coach. He's a very good coach, and he's got time, and he's got, a lot of pieces coming back that he's familiar with from a coaching standpoint. He made a few changes, a few adjustments, but there should be a lot more continuity. But the same can be said for the Miami Hurricanes, because for the first time, they bring back OCDC in the Mario Cristobal era. So this is only the first time that they're marching out the same coordinators that they did the previous year. And so it's going to be interesting to see how these things kind of develop, but it's a 3-game schedule to me. It's Florida. So when people are saying 9 wins and 3 losses, to me, they're saying they lose to Florida or some other, oops game, and then they lose to Louisville and Florida State. That's what I read that 9-3 as saying.
So on one hand, right, I could look at it as, because if College Football News is saying, hey, they're going to finish under 9 wins, that's what our bet would be. So that's 8 wins. And on one hand, I could say, well, 8 wins is still better than last year. That's an improvement. But we aren't just at the level of, well, they improved on last year, right? Because they've gone all in. They went out and got their quarterback, their running back, their wide receiver. They've improved positions on both sides of the football. This needs to be, in my mind, and I think in a lot of fans' mind, an exponential jump. Not just 1 or 2 games better, but 4 or 5 games better is where the jump needs to be.
4 or 5 games together is pushing.
Well, four
they were 7-5. So 4 games.
Okay, three or 4 games. My bad. 3 or 4 games better. Not just 1 game better, right? Not just, hey, we won 1 extra game, but a couple of games, if not more, better. That's what I think a lot of fans want. That's what I kind of want to see. And the level of talent, I think, is there to achieve that.
Yeah, and I think what will be more important than the win total is some championships. So if you can figure out a way to get an ACC championship and win it, and if you can win a bowl championship, I think those are reasonable expectations for year 3. I think Miami has to get to the ACC championship. I don't think they have to win it, but they definitely have to get there. That's a major sign of progress, being one of the top 2 teams, especially with spin in this conference. And so, like I said before, it bears repeating. How do you convince people that funded this, that subscribed to this, that poured into this, and say, hey, what do you need to win. This is what we need. Okay, go do it. And you only come back with 8 or 9 wins. You're never going to get it again. And so that's why I say 10 has to be the floor. It's the floor. It didn't quite go the way we thought. There's some things that are underlying. We thought we had a better this than we did. We thought we had a better that than we did. Because it's not a tough schedule. It really isn't. The traps are set. I mean, one of them is obvious. It's the first game. So you can't be caught you can't be caught up in the game on the first game. The USF game, to me, is the trappiest of all. You survive that, I think it's 10 wins. If you don't survive it, then of course, yes, 8, 9 wins, those are the things. And then you have to beat somebody that maybe, you may be not favored to beat. But I mean, you got Cam Ward, who's getting first round and Heisman odds. You got arguably one of the best portal hauls ever. And you brought back a decent team. And you got rid of a lot of the issues you had. The only thing that I thought that they lost that I didn't care for Jafar Hafley leaving, and I didn't care for Kobe Young. Outside of that, everything that left can be replaced. He brought a tremendous freshman class, some of which are not even on campus yet. They're still going to prom and taking finals and different things like that. So there's a lot to like about what's about to happen, and I just don't see 8 wins and those predictions as being legit. But the national media has always had an offshoot. So if you're a Canes fan, you like this because there have been years that they predicted higher wins. And it was like, remember when like the Canes were always picked to win the Coastal, like almost every single year, and they never won it? Yep. They won it like one time. And it's like, what team are you guys watching?
Yeah, there was so many years when, prediction would come out, oh, the Canes are going to win 10 wins, win the Coastal, and it was like, what are you thinking? Listen, and here's the blunt truth. I think as it relates to predictions for the Canes, I think a lot of it kind of has to do with the reputation of Mario Cristobal as a game day coach. He's got to get over that, and I think he's capable.
Here's the thing: he's not as bad of a game day coach as people. He's maybe a half a win, and that's something that, here's the thing. If the players can improve, so can he. Like, why is he not able to get better?
I agree
at this. And then why are people thinking, like, I just think that not taking a knee against Georgia Tech was a watershed moment. And I think the kind of competitor Coach Cristobal is, I think you'll never see anything remotely close to that. Lack of calling timeouts at the wrong time. I just think he's going to challenge himself and become a better game manager type of coach. And hire somebody to assist him with that. It's not that big of a deal. It's not like he's a terrible O-line coach. Like, he and Maribal are legit at something that's really important to do. So I just would give him the benefit of the doubt. The national media concerns, they've always been off on the Canes, especially the last 20 years, at least since I started covering 11. They've never had a clue about how good or bad this team was, especially the year they went 10-0. Nobody saw that coming. And with the quarterback that Alabama didn't even want, and he was in their backyard. So at the end of the day, I think those national perceptions are under what I think this team will be. I think this team will be good to special. Now, where they fall in that good to special range, I don't know yet.
Well, we will see. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to take a quick break, I should say. On the other side, 2 quick topics. One that, or actually both that are not really Canes related, but they are big time college football topics that are going on around the industry today. We will get to that on the other side. It is the Real Ones Canes podcast. We are back on the Real Ones Canes podcast. He is Brandon O'Doy. Follow him at Brandon_O'Doy. It is Brian London. Follow me at Miami Radio Beast. And subscribe to the podcast wherever you're listening to this podcast right now. Just hit the subscribe button. We appreciate it. And go look for the YouTube channel, the Real Ones Canes podcast on the YouTube. Yeah, do that. How about that? All right, let's get to a couple of big topics that's going around in college football. The one is an interesting player situation. And we do have some understanding of this player down here in Miami. But, Brandon, Cormani McClain, a guy that was all everything out of
Yeah.
Lakeland, one of the biggest recruits out there, and ended up going to Colorado and did not have success there and was in the portal and finally ends up at Florida. But it's an interesting situation. What's your thought process there?
Yeah, Cormani McClain originally committed to the University of Miami, if you recall, Beast. This is a
Correct.
guy that was supposed to be in the 2023 Hurricane recruiting class. Faked out everybody, even his own high school. They had a cake with the University of Miami logo on it, saying, "Congratulations, Cormani." He did not show up to a signing day ceremony. And after a few days, ended up committing to the University of Colorado. So after much fanfare, he decommitted from the University of Miami, committed to Colorado. It was publicly questioned about his work ethic, and his head coach came out publicly saying that he did not study hard enough, film various things you do actually not want a coach to reveal about you. And so I think that it was just a bad situation for both parties. I don't think it worked out there. He left and took some parting shots. Many people around the program at Colorado took some shots at him. They all had to do with sort of the program and his work ethic. And after an extensive search, he's going to the University of Florida. My understanding is that he's going to be a preferred walk-on. He was being invited onto the roster, but I think he's being asked, maybe because of scholarship limits. I don't want to speak out of things that I don't know. My information is that he's being invited on as a walk-on. That's the reporting I've done, but it's not confirmed. But it essentially doesn't even matter because with NIL, he could go as a walk-on, not be on scholarship, and receive the money as an in-state kid because he is a Florida resident, right, to go to the University of Florida pretty affordably. So at the end of the day, I'm sure his NIL or whatever will cover his tuition. And I think what it does for Florida is help them at a position of need. But make no mistake about it. With Cormani, you definitely have a talent, but there's some development that needs to take place. So Coach Will Harris, who's in from the Los Angeles Chargers, he's an LA-based guy. He's going to have his hands full, not full, but he's going to get the pleasure of developing, a talented guy. Cormani's a long dude, about 6'2". And for all intents and purposes, I think it's good for him to be back in more familiar surroundings. He played in Polk County. That is a big Gator, pipeline. A lot of kids that play in Polk end up at the Florida Gators. So I think there's some pride that he's going to have for playing for that school. I think he really liked it. I think finance got caught up in his process and sort of clouded good judgment maybe. He's a kid that I think will thrive better in a more familiar environment and being around people and players that he can identify with, people that kind of know his story and are not going to put nearly the amount of pressure that was put on him at Colorado.
Do you think, listen, you've seen the kid for a long time. You followed him a long time. Can he turn it around?
Yeah, he can. He's talented enough to do that. I think he's got to do what kids who are in, it's an enviable position. He's at the forefront. He's a very out there kid, big recruit. And he kind of reminds me of another guy that did something very similar, Ajay Hall, who went to Alabama from Armwood. Then he went to Texas, 2 huge programs. Didn't produce at the level that, fans maybe wanted to expect it. He had some drops in the national championship game. He was only a true freshman. Kind of had to go ghost for a while. Ends up now walking on to UCF. So I think when you see these guys come back closer to home, get back around more familiar surroundings. A Tampa kid in Orlando is only an hour and a half away from home. A Polk County kid in Gainesville is about the same. I think when things start to kind of go left, and this is why back in the day, Beast, you didn't have kids going way far away from home. You just didn't have that, because what you lose is the infrastructure of your support, having, your family members at games, other things, whatever. Now with the advent of the internet, cheaper plane and travel prices, you see a lot of kids going to school cross country, but you still cannot underscore walking out of games and seeing your parents there after you get off, preparing to get on the bus like that. You cannot take that away, especially if you have a tough game.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
When you're dealing with it, and I think Cormani's mother was out there with him, but he was just under the microscope. They started to lose. I think that, and just the magnitude of the big microscope that, Coach Deion Sanders, his entire program was under, it was too much too soon for that kid.
By the way,
he's kind of an introverted kid, even though he's been in the spotlight. I don't think he wants that.
By the way, I don't know that there's greater pressure than playing for a Hall of Famer who played your position.
Yeah.
Because where's
number one?
Yeah, where's his
position?
He
had some things he had to mature. And listen, like, I get out. You remember being a college freshman? I mean, I remember being when we're not that old, but I mean, to be expected to come in and kind of, behind Deion's son and Travis Hunter, two sort of generational type players, and to be able to fit in that mold, get all that 5-star hype, and come into a huge program with a bunch of national games at the very, very beginning, and come out in the first few games, don't even play. And everybody's calling for you, trying to figure out where you are. Why aren't you playing? And the head coach kind of throws you under the bus and kind of tells the truth. And I don't want to say I know Deion, but I think Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, would have given Cormani a heads up, like, hey, man, you need to get your stuff together. And he just wasn't having any success. And he was like, you know what? Let me serve him up. Let me serve him up to the media and see if he hears his names in a few headlines and sees his name in lights, if that'll motivate him. And it had the opposite effect, I feel.
Yeah, by the way, when I got to college, I just had trouble actually picking out an outfit to go to school in class because my mom wasn't there to do it for me. But we'll talk about that a different time.
Why don't you just go to school in PJs? Like, that's what we did.
Yeah, true. Valid point. Hey, real quick before we get out of here, last thing. We are doing this on Thursday. Just about an hour ago, it was officially announced that college football, the video game, EA Sports, it's back. And it'll be released July 19th. I think you can get a special VIP edition and get it on July 16th. But Brandon, I don't know about you, but back in the day, that's all I did in my off time was play that freaking game.
Let me tell you a story. So I roomed with all Big Ten running back Jason Wright. He's currently the president of the Washington Commanders, NFL. So he was coming home from like practice, workouts, or whatever. It had to be like 11, 12 o'clock. Okay. And yeah, at Northwestern where we went, the stadium and where we were off campus was at least 20-minute drive. So he walks in the door late. I'm playing NCAA, and he's like first one out of the door in the morning, and he wakes up and he walks past me and I'm still playing on like Dynasty mode. So it's just like my senior year, I only had like 3 classes, and that's just like a story we tell all the time. Because he walks in, he's like, hey, Brandon. I'm like, hey, Jason. And he walks out like later that morning at like 5 a.m. to like go to workouts. Yep. And he's like, goodbye, Brandon. I'm like, goodbye, Jason. And I'm sitting there. Yeah, I haven't moved. I'm in the same spot.
I was lucky enough to get a job right out actually before I graduated at the radio station, but I still lived not too far. I lived down in Kendall, and my roommates were all still at UM. So same thing, man. We would just have the boys over, playing college football all night long. They would go to class. I would go to work. We'd come back. Same thing all night, up all night. It was a thing. So I can't wait for that. I'm excited about that. We may have to get a few media leagues going or something. We may have to, challenge some people on that game. I haven't played a video game in a long time.
I haven't either, but I'm excited to play this.
Yeah,
and
I'm about it.
My wife,
I'm all about it, man. I can't
go
wait.
Ahead and break up in the budget.
And you know what? I'm gonna have to see how Cam Ward looks in that orange and green on the video game. I'm gonna have to see.
Did he opt in? We're gonna find out who opted in.
Yeah, we will find out for sure. There's no doubt about it. All right, man. We will catch everyone next week. We'll see what news develops over this week and bring it to you next week. Thanks everyone for listening. Thanks everyone for watching. Subscribe wherever you're listening or watching. Please subscribe. For Brandon O'Doy on the Beast Brian Lennon, we'll see you next time. The Real Ones Canes podcast. Peace.